Hello and good evening. So, what's buzzing in the news? We are meeting after 4 days, and you're watching the digital video bulletin in English language of datelinegujaratnews.com. And my name is HimanshuBhayani. So, let's see what's happening after 4 days, weekends, a lot of news. The US warship has been sailing through the Taiwan Strait after China concluded its military drills, and deadly mass shooting at a teen birthday party in Alabama. Huge explosion reported at a dairy farm in Texas. 18,000 cows have been killed. Sorry. And the person who was engaged into the Pentagon leaks, Jack Teixeira, is been arrested. He's a gun enthusiast, a man in uniform, of course. And the Battle of Bakhmut is getting severe. The Wagner chief has said that Russia, having met its goals, it's like you should declare your victory on Ukraine and you should be out of it. Otherwise, these would create some other set of problems. That's what Wagner chief has warned. Germany approves Poland's request to send all fighter jets to Ukraine, whereas Kremlin eyes the US Intel leak as something, it's a little fishy, and they think that it questions a lot of authenticities. After the meeting of Xi, now it's the defense minister of China who has met Putin, and they have discussed about their bilateral agreements on engagements on the war which is going on, and how they would kind of extend their partnership and extend their partnership. That's what has been largely the discussion. But meeting of defense minister Li Shung-fu has been seen in such a manner that it was meeting after a few days after Xi met him. And on other side, if you see the Ukrainians who were kind of getting the arms from the Russian soldiers once in the battle zone, they find that there are traces of Chinese components into those Russian weapons. So somewhere I think Russia is helping, China is helping Russia. That's also a part of the Pentagon leaks. So this is developing kind of a thing. Narrow escape from a smoke bomb attack of Japanese Prime Minister. And North Korea has violated the territories. It has sailed into some maritime barriers, and South Korea has also fired a warning shot. Reports of ambush on Indonesian troop who were in search of a kidnapped New Zealand pilot by the extremist groups. And news about India, the mafia leader and the ex-lawmaker has been shot point blank in India. That is about Atiq Ahmed, who was shot in the police custody. And a fire has been reported in an apartment in Dubai, mild earthquake in Turkey, and Sudan is in huge crisis. Sudan is in crisis. There has been a problem. Sudanese paramilitary force, they have been releasing the video of how they have recaptured basically the TV station, the airport, the palatial buildings, and of course the military headquarters, which from the Egyptian soldiers, and how the Egyptian army is also under their control. Some members of security forces of Burkina Faso have been killed in an attack. That's a dominating headline largely in the African media. And rest of the world, if you see, the Pope John Paul has denied allegations on John Paul II for sexual allegations. He has denied. And Roman Polanski, who had raped a girl when she was at the age of 13, her interview has appeared in Western media, and she has met basically the wife of Roman Polanski, and she has narrated the whole thing. This was in 1977, and it has rocked the Hollywood, sorry. So this is what it is. And retirement age in France, that's still news across in the Western media. And Germany has warned over the Taiwan-China tension, saying that if this escalates, this could be a problem for the world. Asian headlines largely dominated by China. China says changing global demands, context between changing global situation demands kind of aggressive and excess context and layers basically between Beijing and Moscow. So that's the statement after the defense minister met Putin. And China is willing to work with Russia to maintain global security. That's what the defense minister has said. So, the bipolar world and all that which is being talked about. Equally, China hopes that Germany supports the reunification of Taiwan, the way Germany has warned that if this escalates, it would be a different story. And the Taiwanese presidential contender has said that the war would bring a disaster to China too. That he has warned China also that if you fight with us, we may lose, but equally you may also lose. That's the large, more or less the tone of Taiwanese presidential contender. The undersea cables which were cut, which were connecting Taiwan by the vessels of China, that was the allegation. Now the Taiwan has found a solution to this. They have found a solution through satellite links. So they will be using the internet etc. through satellite, so they don't remain disconnected in this, disconnected with the world, or the disconnected world of the connectivity. Going ahead, The US warship has also sailed into the Taiwan Strait of Taiwan. That's what I said. And Beijing is not returning the call. That's the top US diplomat has said. Pentagon leak accuses China of arming Russia. That's what we talked about. And North Korea has boasted about a new type of weapon. The claim of missile fired on the last week on Thursday, which was solid fuel ICBM. That's an intercontinental ballistic missile. And keeping this in view, the South Korea has conducted large-scale combined air drills, and Japan and South Korea are going to conduct a security talk for the first time. Philippines, Chinese envoy has alleged that Philippines is stoking a regional tension with U.S. bases pact. So, this is not seen in a good light. And Filipino helper deaths 4 days after COVID-19 vaccine jab ruled a medical misadventure. That's a Ministry of Health telling in Philippines. While Malaysia, with the rising COVID-19 cases, the government has said to mask up. I mean, all the citizens who are out, they should wear masks. That's what the Malaysian government is telling, and they have urged the Malaysians to follow the basic protocol of COVID, wear the masks, use sanitizers, etc., maintain the distance. Indonesian police has killed 2 suspects of Jemaah Islami militants. That's the news. And Myanmar Junta has pardoned 3,000 prisoners to mark the Buddhist New Year. They have equally even bombed and killed 4 people, injured 11 in Chan state in Myanmar. And drone attacks have killed 8 and injured 30 in Sagaing region. So, on one hand, they are pardoning people. On the other hand, they are killing people. Any which ways. Going ahead, we talk of the magnificent Middle East. Middle East is largely concentrated with the news of Iran, Saudi Arabia, how the diplomatic patches are taking up, how the embassies would open in Riyadh and basically Tehran. This is being watched by the world. The US former chief has also warned that the growing links between Middle East, Russia, China poses huge challenges for US. So all the news is concentrated mainly on Iran, Israel, Syria. This is the kind of thing which is happening. And reports of US helicopter which had raided the Syria targets an Islamic State leader. Equally, there has been massive explosions reported in the US base in eastern Syria. So these things are going on basically. It's an ongoing kind of tension which is happening. So US forces killed senior Islamic State official in a pre-dawn Syria raid. On the other hand, they are talking of the peace. The Arab initiative is happening in that direction. And Khamenei in Iran has said to the armed forces, don't settle for any level of power. And he has said that actually Iran has invited the Saudi king also to visit Tehran. So that's the news. And Iran foreign ministry which says Tehran and Riyadh to reopen embassies by May 9. So as I said, this is the news largely. Iranian crown princess arrives in a historic visit to Israel. So he's also gone to Israel. So as I said, it's Iran, it's Israel, it's Syria. This is the news. This is the new tension zone which is happening in Middle East. Already you have in South China Sea. You have in India, the Indo-Pacific region, where Australia has said that, no one power should be rising in Indo-Pacific. And now it's the new thing which is happening within the peninsula in Middle East. And Iran having tested the Sari 365 anti-tank guided missile successfully. That's what the news is. Iran is waging a multi-front war of attrition against Israel. That's the news again, and that's the headlines in those areas. Iran and Hezbollah have their eyes on Israel. Hezbollah flag was waved, and that has created a kind of tension between Lebanon and Israel also. And Shin Bet, that is basically the intelligence unit of Israel, which has exposed the attempts of IRGC. That's the Iranian security body and force. They were recruiting the Palestinians against Israel. So this is what the news is. And a CNN journalist, Tamara Quebili, has been forced to delete all anti-Israeli social media posts. She was attacked for this, and she had attacked basically Israel on several things which she had posted online, and she has been asked to delete. So everywhere, the authoritarian governments work this way only. When you say something which they don't like, they will compel you to delete it. Hamas sees opportunity to strengthen its position in Palestinian Authority's expense with the Saudi visit. So Saudi is visiting, and Hezbollah flag has sparked controversies on the Lebanon-Israel border. It has sparked some tensions, and of course, Israeli police has shot down some residents in East Jerusalem, suspecting a damage of vehicles. So this is a routine thing which happens in Israel, Gaza, West Bank, Palestine, all these places. And PA president, that's the Palestinian Authority's president Abbas, to visit Saudi Arabia alongside Hamas. Saudi is said to host Hamas delegation also. So further dimming Israel hopes for ties. So a complete new thing is happening. On one hand, Saudi Arabia is talking of peace and everything in Yemen with the Houthi rebels. On another hand, they are inviting Hamas. So a complete new kind of excess is building up in the Middle East. 14 Democrats have urged Biden to shift his approach towards the Israel-Palestinian conflict. And in a cyber war attempt, unsophisticated Iranian cyber attack temporarily has downed the Israeli bank sites and post office. They were soon back to, services, but this happened basically on the day when Jerusalem Day, which was marked as, which is a yearly marked event on the last Friday of Ramadan, and these hackers, mainly known as the anonymous Sudan group, they attacked on these Israeli banks and post office sites. Israel's Netanyahu falls in polls could abandon judicial overhaul, and UN Palestine expert has unfazed the Israeli push for firing. Equally, on other side, if you see, there are some news which are like interesting news which comes is that the Abu Dhabi royal family has bought a mega yacht Lana of $200 million. That's worth watching. Who are the people who have really hired that van, that mega yacht? And it's almost a full football field palace which is floating in the sea. And Tunisian footballer has died setting himself on the fire in front of a police station. Houthis try to reassure skeptics that they won't seek full control of Yemen as yet. Saudis are eyeing exit, so they've assured a kind of thing that they won't seek the full control of Yemen. Then there are Iranian-backed rebel group. Africa, as I said, the news is more loaded with the Sudan and the Sudan crisis. The nation is rocked with explosions and gunfires. Paramilitary forces have shared the videos claiming surrendering of Egyptian troops, army having regained control over state television building, Khartoum airport, presidential palace, as well as military headquarters. And reports have surfaced of flight services from Saudi suspended to Khartoum airport amidst the Sudan crisis. And Iran is equally worried on the situation. US and UN have urged to stop the the violence basically, so US and UN have urged to stop the violence basically and in Sudan, and US Secretary Anthony J. Blinken and US Foreign Secretary James Cleverly, they have said they are on the alert mode on the situation, and they have given their statements. East African leaders have converged a meeting. They have said that immediate ceasefire is needed for this situation. That's the dope basically from the Africa when you talk of the news and African subcontinent. Eccentric Europe, it's bubbling with the news of Macron. Still, the Macron is being criticized by the EU Commission, calling his comments on China basically as a kind of public relations disaster. It's seen as a disaster for Europe mainly in several columns, and few Europeans, of course, they think that's the reflection in the editorial piece that what Europeans really think about China. That's what Macron has said. So he says that okay, you have to be with China, then this is how it is. So few are in favor, few are not in favor. The leadership is not in favor, whereas there are common citizens or common people who are in that favor. 2 tons of cocaine bobbing in the sea, it is floating in the sea. That has been seized by Italian police. Pictures are worth watching. I have already shared it as one of the thumbnails of my YouTube videos, but imagine 2 tons of cocaine floating, a cocaine hole floating on a Sicily coast. That's off Italy, So how much money is that? Any which ways. Greek opposition has questioned that whether the government has sent predators to Sudan in this situation. Predators are basically a kind of war weapons. And Defense Minister of Russia has discussed the Pacific fleet drills with Putin. So now, they will be eyeing the area in Pacific and how they would go ahead with that. And Ukrainians find more Chinese components in Russian weapons. That's what we had said. And Ukraine refugees are protesting living conditions in a Dutch village. And mercenary chief of Wagner Group is predicting heavy Russian losses in coming weeks. So that's mainly the news from the European news playbook. And going ahead on, the US, the Caribbean blues, and the Latin American push. Pentagon leaks chief. Pentagon leaks has kind of put the allies on a back foot. So there's a piece across Canadian news vertical or the news and media organizations, that will this Pentagon intel leaks, put US-Canada relationship into some kind of thin ice? Would there still be some transparency, or it would basically stop for a while, or it would go a little cold over here? A Supreme Court case is to decide the future of Canadian climate policy, and footage shows a leak in the Pacific Ocean floor, which could trigger huge, massive earthquakes and tsunamis. And equally, the Supreme Court has stayed a Quebec-based case, which was asking for the ban on the homegrown pot plants, as terming it as unconstitutional. But the Supreme Court has said that the Quebec ban on the homegrown pot plants is constitutional one. So probably this ban has been continuing, or that's how the situation is. 30,000 Afghan refugees have arrived at Canada with the help of International Organization of Migration Support. In other developments, Northern American terrain, if you see, in Mexico, the Sinaloa cartel, US has charged the Sinaloa cartel, including the El Chapo's sons, in connection to the fentanyl smuggling. The fentanyl is basically a drug which is used in Mexico. It's sold in the medical stores also. There was a huge debate between Mexico and China, and the way Mexico said to stop these fentanyl shipments from China, and China said we are not engaged into that. And finally, US has fixed the charges on Sinaloa cartel, and they are in. Of course, the firing at a resort, in Mexican resort, where one kid and 6 adults have died, so 7 people have died in that. And 3 American sailors have gone missing off the Mexico coast. So the search hunt for them is on. Fugitive Mehul Choksi, moving away from to Caribbean blues from the Northern American spaces. It's a good news for fugitive Mehul Choksi, because the Antigua High Court has refused to extradite him, and a big win for him. That's how it is seen in media, most of the places in India and of course in Antigua. And Jamaica has recorded a minor earthquake. Seychelles and Cuba are celebrating their 45 years of relationship. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov will be on a tour to Cuba and other Kremlin allies. Brazil has speeded up the process for visas for Haitians and their relatives. And for the first time, the Barbados Medicinal Cannabis Licensing Authority. So this is the body. For the first time, they are going to launch an official edition of cannabis. It will be a magazine on cannabis, which will be called Bajcan. That will be the official industry magazine, the first of its type. And in other dispatches from Latin America, President Lula of Brazil gets a 21-gun salute in Beijing. Shanghai Party secretary meets the Brazilian president, while Bolsonaro is to be quizzed over the riots, as the Brazil court has ordered the police to question Bolsonaro on uprising. And Iranian president is planning a trip to Latin America. Equally, this trip is being planned keeping in view the growing influence of Russia in the Latin American space. And Peruvian archaeologists have unearthed a 500-year-old ceremonial bath. So that's a structure which has been unveiled. And going ahead, if we talk of the Playful Pacifics, mainly it's a weather, the news from the Playful Pacifics. Light magnitude earthquake has hit New Zealand. A major powerful earthquake has hit the popular tourist town in Australia. Reports everyone surface of the homes being shaken completely. Cyclone has hit Australia, of course, and NASA has launched a stadium-sized balloon from New Zealand. No single power to be allowed. That's what Australia says to dominate Indo-Pacific. That they actually are pointing towards China. And Melbourne has toppled Sydney, and now Melbourne is the biggest city of Australia on some technical aspects. And New Zealand stresses on ties with China in a cultural festival. The Deputy Prime Minister of New Zealand has said about ties with China. And equally, Australia is keen to promote its relationship with Vietnam and Philippines. So that's the news from the Playful Pacifics. Frozen polars, as usual, disappearing ice, news pertaining to ice and creating a climate change and all sort of troubles is there in the news from the frozen polars. But if we see ahead, what's happening is that wind turbines are headed towards Antarctica. And there has been a study which shows that how the Amazon deforestation is linked to the reduced Tibetan snows and the Antarctic ice loss. China is hesitant about endorsing the marine protected area proposal in Antarctica. So they want all the rights on mines, oil, everything over there, all the natural resources, but they want to endorse on the protection of the marine life in the marine area. And Arctic military exercises are up in Arctic region. Russia has conducted a major training activity for the Russian Northern Fleet, and Russian occupation in Ukraine is changing the geopolitics of Arctics. That's editorial piece. And of course, Russia has indicated to cooperate with the BRICS nations in the research on Svalbard. So these are the news largely across the day. If we go ahead on the business, there are lots of news on the business front. On the business front, if you see, there have been news from across Asia, Middle East, Africa, Europe, US, South Pacific, and pros and polars. But these news are mixed bags, so they are not a kind of news swarms, which can be indicated saying that okay, this is bigger news. Of course, currency wars remain the attraction, but I mean the economic ties between the nations, banking business updates, telecom, internet projects, tie-ups and expansions. Predictions from the international trade bodies like IMFs and World Banks on the how the economy is likely to pan up from here, and associations as well as transnational cooperation in several projects pertaining to energy, oil and gas, infrastructure, port, shipping, logistics, mining projects, mining sector projects, mainly the lithium and the rare earth metals, and the renewable energy, of course. So these are the things, largely, and of course, some news on manufacturing sector also and service sectors as well. So this is update for the day today, and wishing you a good day ahead. Thanks a lot. Good night.